In the bustling neighborhood of Detroit, Michigan, Marcus Thompson, a 17-year-old with a captivating smile and a fiery passion for music, walked along the main street after another day at Martin Luther King High School. His favorite baseball cap was tilted back slightly, a gesture he used to show a bit of rebellion against his generally calm demeanor. "No way, man. You should seriously think about making a video for that song you did the other day." "It was awesome," Marcus' friend James said as they walked together. Marcus chuckled, James' compliment warming his heart. "Thanks, man. I'll consider it. Just gotta find time between classes and my job at the market." The two continued chatting about music and future plans until Marcus spotted a police car parking up ahead at the corner. A feeling of unease ran down his spine, but he tried to brush it off, keeping a cool exterior. "Can't believe this," Marcus muttered as the police car started to slowly follow him. James frowned. "Relax, man. They're probably just patrolling." But Marcus knew something wasn't right. He could feel the officers' eyes on him as they continued to tail him. Managing to suppress his anxiety, Marcus tried to focus on his music to calm himself. As Marcus attempted to ignore the persistent presence of the police car, it finally pulled up beside him and came to a stop. Two officers got out, their expressions serious and their gazes fixed on Marcus. "Good afternoon, sir. Can I see your identification, please?" One of the officers, a tall man with short hair and a shiny badge, asked politely yet firmly. Marcus swallowed hard, feeling the tension mounting around him. "Sure, officer." He handed over his school ID with trembling hands. The second officer, a woman with her hair pulled back tightly in a bun, looked at Marcus with an inscrutable expression. "What were you doing before we approached you?" "I was just heading home from school." Marcus tried to keep his voice steady, though his heart was pounding in his chest. "We received reports of suspicious activity in this area." "We need to verify your story," the male officer said, checking Marcus' ID with a slight look of suspicion. "Suspicious activity? I'm just coming back from school." "I haven't done anything wrong," Marcus replied, struggling to control the growing frustration in his voice. James, who had been following closely behind Marcus, interjected, "Officers, Marcus is an outstanding student. He's not involved in anything suspicious." The officers exchanged a quick glance before the male officer addressed James with a stern look. "Please keep your distance, sir. We're handling this situation." Marcus felt the weight of injustice pressing against him as the officers continued to question him, their inquiries feeling increasingly invasive. He felt indignation growing inside him as the officers continued to interrogate him, each question seeming like a disguised judgment. He took a deep breath, trying to maintain composure, but his hands trembled slightly. "Sir, you seem nervous. Is there a reason for that?" the female officer asked, her tone still formal but with a hint of suspicion. Marcus looked around, seeing some people from the neighborhood stopping to watch the scene unfold. He felt exposed, as if he was being judged not just by the officers, but by everyone around him. I just want to go home." "I'm not doing anything wrong," Marcus replied, trying to keep his voice firm despite the growing sense of humiliation. The male officer stepped a bit closer. "We'll need to search your backpack, just to ensure there's nothing suspicious." Marcus felt a mix of anger and helplessness. "This isn't right. I have rights." "We're just doing our job, sir," the officer replied, his voice now less polished. James looked around, sensing the tension in the air. "You can't do this. Marcus hasn't done anything to deserve this treatment." "If you don't have a valid reason to stop me, I have the right to leave," Marcus said, trying to recall the rights he had learned about in school. The officers exchanged tense glances before finally backing off. "All right, sir. You can go," the male officer said, though his expression made it clear he wasn't pleased. Marcus grabbed his backpack and quickly walked away, feeling a mix of relief for not being detained and anger at the injustice of the situation. He could hear murmurs of support from the people around, but the weight of the incident still hung heavily on his shoulders as he walked away, determined not to let it pass in vain. Marcus walked briskly, trying to process what had just happened. He felt exposed and indignant, his mind spinning with thoughts of injustice and restrained anger. As he approached home, he saw some neighborhood residents looking at him with looks of compassion and solidarity. An elderly lady who was watering her plants on the sidewalk greeted him with a concerned wave, but Marcus just waved back, trying to hide the storm of emotions consuming him. When he finally arrived home, Marcus found his mother in the kitchen, preparing dinner. She looked at him with immediate concern upon seeing his somber expression. "Marcus, what happened? You look upset," his mother asked, setting aside the knife she was using to chop vegetables. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to describe what had just happened. "Mom, I got stopped by the police on my way back from school." His mother placed a hand over her chest, worry etched on her face. "What did they say? What happened?" Marcus recounted the unjustified interrogation, the search of his backpack, and the feeling of humiliation that accompanied the entire encounter. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke, his hands clenched in fists of frustration. "This shouldn't have happened to you, Marcus," his mother said, her voice mixing compassion with restrained anger. "You don't deserve to be treated like this." Marcus nodded, feeling a lump forming in his throat. "I know, Mom. But what can I do?" His mother hugged him, holding him tightly. "We'll deal with this together. We'll see what we can do to make sure this doesn't happen again." Marcus felt somewhat comforted by his mother's embrace, but the indignation still burned within him. He knew he needed to find a way to turn this experience into something more than just a personal episode of injustice. In the days following the police incident, Marcus struggled to cope with the emotional impact. He found it difficult to concentrate in class and on his music, his mind often returning to that moment of humiliation and injustice. At home, he avoided talking much about the incident with his mother, trying to shield her from additional worries. However, his nights were filled with turbulent thoughts and a growing sense of frustration. One afternoon, while in his room trying to compose a new song, Marcus received a text message from James. "Hey man, how are you feeling?" Marcus sighed and texted back. "Still upset about everything that happened. Can't believe they did that to me." James replied quickly. "I'm shocked too. You know we're all here for you, right? Whatever you need, we're in this together." James' words brought Marcus some comfort. He knew he had the support of his friends and the community around him. Still, he felt powerless in the face of the injustice he had faced. That night, Marcus struggled to sleep. He tossed and turned in bed, unable to silence the voices in his mind that repeated the officer's words and the feeling of being treated like a criminal for no reason. The next day, he decided to talk to his history teacher, Mrs. Garcia, one of the few people at school he trusted completely. During break, he found her in the teacher's lounge, sitting at her desk, reading a book. "Marcus, dear, how are you?" Mrs. Garcia asked gently, seeing the serious expression on the student's face. Marcus took a deep breath, gathering courage to share his feelings. "Mrs. Garcia, I wanted to talk to you about something that happened to me recently." The conversation with Mrs. Garcia was a relief for Marcus. He finally could vent his emotions, and she listened attentively, offering advice and encouragement. "Marcus, you have every right to feel the way you're feeling. What happened was unfair, and it's important that you don't dismiss your emotions," Mrs. Garcia said with a soft but firm voice. Marcus nodded, feeling a weight lifted off his shoulders. He knew he still had a long way to go to process everything that had happened, but at least now he wasn't alone in his emotional struggle. In the weeks that followed the police incident, Marcus began to feel the growing support of his friends, neighbors, and even some teachers. People in the neighborhood expressed their solidarity whenever they saw him, many stopping to offer words of encouragement and support. One afternoon, while Marcus was helping his mother with shopping at the local market, he was approached by a group of neighbors who had witnessed the police encounter. An elderly lady with a small dog on a leash was the first to speak. "Marcus, honey, we're all shocked by what happened to you." "This isn't right. Not at all," she said in a gentle yet firm voice. Another neighbor, an elderly man wearing a worn baseball cap, shook his head disapprovingly. "Those cops need to learn how to treat people with respect. You didn't deserve that." Marcus smiled timidly, grateful for the unexpected support. Thank you, neighbors. It means a lot to me to know I have your support. His mother placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. It's true, Marcus. We're not alone in this. Our community is here for us. At school, Marcus's friends continued to show their support in different ways. James organized an event at a friend's house to cheer Marcus up, with loud music and basketball games in the backyard. You need some time to have fun, man, James said, tossing a ball to Marcus. Don't let this bring you down. Marcus laughed, throwing the ball back. You guys are amazing, you know that? Thanks for being there for me. The days weren't easy, but with the ongoing support of his community and friends, Marcus began to find some peace amidst the emotional turmoil he was facing. He knew there was still much to be done to ensure that no one else went through what he had, but the support he received strengthened him to keep fighting for justice and change. After weeks of grappling with the emotions stirred by the incident, Marcus and his family decided it was time to take concrete action. They consulted a local lawyer recommended by a family friend, determined to seek justice for the unfair treatment Marcus had endured. In the lawyer's office, Marcus and his mother, accompanied by his uncle, sat across from a sturdy wooden table as the lawyer carefully reviewed the details of the incident. I completely understand your situation, Marcus, the lawyer, a middle-aged man with a serious and determined look, said. What happened to you is disturbing and completely unacceptable. Marcus nodded, grateful for the support and reassurance that his concerns were not unfounded. I just want to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else, you know? We know, Marcus, his mother said, placing a hand affectionately on his. We're going to fight for you. The lawyer made some notes as he continued to discuss the legal course of action. We'll start with a formal complaint against the local police department based on racial discrimination and abuse of power. I'll ensure your rights are defended to the best of my ability. The conversation continued, detailing the legal steps that would be taken, including gathering evidence, witness testimonies, and preparing a potential lawsuit. We're ready to move forward, lawyer, Marcus said, his voice firm with determination. I don't want this to happen to anyone else. His uncle nodded, silently expressing support as he looked at Marcus with pride. We're with you, nephew. We'll do whatever it takes. With the legal plans underway, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew the road ahead would be tough and lengthy, but he was determined to ensure his voice was heard and measures were taken to prevent similar injustices in the future. As the legal process progressed, Marcus found solace in music and the stories of others who had faced similar challenges. He spent hours composing new songs in his room, using music as a way to express his emotions and frustrations. One afternoon, Marcus was in the school library, flipping through books about historical figures who fought against racial injustice. He was particularly interested in the stories of activists who used their voice to bring about significant changes. Marcus, what are you reading? Asked his classmate Emily, approaching him in the history section. Marcus smiled weakly, closing the book he was reading. I'm reading about Malcolm X and his struggles for Black rights. It's inspiring to see how he fought against injustice. Emily nodded, sitting down beside him. You know, many people have faced similar situations to yours throughout history. It's powerful to know that you're not alone in this fight. Marcus looked at her, grateful for her words of support. You're right. Studying these stories gives me hope and strength to keep fighting. For weeks, Marcus immersed himself in history and music, finding inspiration on every page read and every note played. He knew he needed to find his own voice, not just as a talented musician, but as a determined young person aiming to make a positive change in his community. That night, in his room, Marcus finally found the perfect melody for a new song. He picked up his guitar and started playing, letting his emotions flow through the strings as he crafted lyrics reflecting his personal journey of resistance and hope. This is for everyone fighting against injustice, Marcus murmured to himself, his words echoing in the comforting silence of his room. As the notes softly resonated, Marcus felt a sense of inner peace. He knew his journey was far from over, but he had found a new strength within himself to keep fighting, not just for personal justice, but for the change he believed was possible. As Marcus continued to draw strength from music and history, he began to consider more public ways to make his voice heard. Alongside his supportive friends and community members, Marcus decided to organize a peaceful protest to raise awareness about racial discrimination and abuses of power. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, Marcus and his friends gathered at a local park, spreading handmade signs with messages of equality and justice. James taped up a large sign that read, "Justice for All," while Emily handed out flyers explaining the purpose of the protest. "Marcus, I think a lot of people are going to show up," Emily said, looking around at the growing crowd in the park. Marcus nodded, feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. "I hope so. We need our voice to be heard." As more people joined the protest, Marcus stepped onto a makeshift platform to speak. He looked at the crowd with gratitude and a renewed sense of purpose. "Friends, today we gather not just in solidarity with me, but in solidarity with everyone who has ever been unfairly treated because of the color of their skin," Marcus began, his voice filled with emotion. "We're here to say enough to racial discrimination and abuses of power. We want justice and equality for all." The crowd applauded and murmured in support, some raising their own signs in solidarity. Marcus felt a shiver of gratitude and determination. He knew that protest was just the beginning of a larger journey, but each person there represented a step toward the change he wanted to see in his community. The protest continued peacefully, with impassioned speeches, songs of resistance, and the support of community members who joined Marcus's cause. He felt strengthened by the demonstration of solidarity and hope, knowing that together they could make a real difference. Following the positive impact of the peaceful protest, Marcus and his friends decided to take the next step, negotiating with the cafe where the initial incident occurred. They wanted to ensure the company acknowledged the issue of racial discrimination and implemented concrete measures for diversity and inclusion. Marcus and his group scheduled a meeting with the cafe manager, a middle-aged man with a serious and cautious expression. They gathered in a reserved room at the back of the establishment, where the atmosphere was tense yet determined. "Thank you for seeing us, sir," Marcus began, sitting with a firm posture alongside his friends. The manager looked at them, his gaze expressing a mix of curiosity and reservations. "I understand you have concerns about our establishment. I'd like to hear more about this." James took the lead, explaining clearly the events leading up to the protest and the community's concerns regarding racial discrimination. He presented witness statements and detailed accounts of what Marcus and others had experienced. "We're not just here to complain," Emily added, her voice firm. "We want to work with you to ensure everyone feels welcome here, regardless of their race or background." The manager nodded slowly, absorbing the information. "I understand the seriousness of the situation. I'll bring this to the attention of the owners and see what we can do." Marcus felt the tension in the air, but kept his focus. "We'd like to see tangible commitments in terms of cultural sensitivity training for all staff, clear policies against discrimination, and visible actions supporting diversity in the community." After a lengthy discussion, the manager agreed to take immediate steps, including implementing cultural sensitivity training for the entire staff and reviewing customer service policies to promote inclusion. "We're committed to doing better," the manager said, his expression now more open and receptive. "We appreciate you bringing this to our attention in such a constructive way." Marcus and his friends left the meeting with a sense of accomplishment. They knew there was still work to be done, but each step taken represented progress in the right direction. They were determined to continue advocating for justice and equality in their community, knowing their voice had the power to bring about significant change.